Alright, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to another video here on the channel, and today we're going to be talking about two pretty big news stories that have come out over the last 24 hours or so regarding the United States, and some pretty major foreign policy stuff that has been going on. I'm sure if you've been paying attention to the news, there has been a lot of stuff going on between the United States and many other countries around the world. Countries like Colombia, Panama, Canada, Mexico. We are now officially, I believe today, 2 weeks into the official Trump second presidency, and there's already been a lot of shit going on. There's already been a lot of news. There's already been a lot of things that have been talked about for months from Trump that are actually being enacted pretty quickly here. And one of those big things has been his stance when it comes to like foreign aid or trade deficits, things like that, right? So we've been hearing for the last few months, Trump has been very heavy on this whole Panama Canal concept, right? He believes that the United States has essentially lost control of the engineering project that we built all this time ago. He believes that the Chinese are essentially running the Panama Canal. The United States, our ships are being overcharged, things like that. So part of his rhetoric has been, he's been publicly threatening to essentially take the Panama Canal back from Panama because we gifted Panama the Panama Canal. He has been threatening to basically reclaim the Panama Canal using a stipulation in the agreement between the United States and Panama that basically we can take it back if the contract is being violated on Panama's end of everything, right? And this was a pretty major news story, right? When Trump started even talking about taking back the Panama Canal. On the Trump inauguration video I made, this was one of the main things that I discussed. Well, as of today, it appears that Panama has actually capitulated to the United States regarding the demands on the Panama Canal, as Panama has made an announcement that it will no longer renew its agreements with China on China's Belt and Road Initiative that Panama was in agreement to be part of, and they will be basically reprioritizing the United States in future agreements to invest in the country and to have more basically ownership over the Panama Canal, basically trying to make it more fair for the Americans. Panama says it will not renew its agreement involving China's premier foreign investment program after Panamanian leaders met with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, marking another victory for President Trump. Panama will allow its 2017 Trade and Development Pact involving China's Belt and Road Initiative to expire, said Panamanian President Jose Raul Mulino at a press conference Sunday after months of threats by Trump to take back the Panama Canal, claiming, quote, American ships are being severely overcharged and accusing China of, quote, operating the crucial waterway. Mulino even said he will explore options to see if his country's involvement in the agreement can end sooner than the 1 or 2 years it may take for it. Panama's announcement that it would be ending its involvement in China's major investment program occurred the day before Mexico also caved over Trump's new 25% tariff on Mexican products. Trump and Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum announced Monday that they had agreed to a 1-month pause on across-the-board tariffs by the U.S. in exchange for concessions on border security by Mexico while a broader deal gets negotiated. Rubio, during his trip to Panama, had warned that the U.S. would act to end China's influence over the canal, saying that as long as the Chinese Communist Party is in power, China is a threat to the international treaty that is supposed to ensure the canal remains neutral. So honestly, I did not expect to see this news, at least this quickly. Like I said, we are officially 2 weeks now into Trump's presidency today, and this announcement has already been made. So for those of you who don't know what China's Belt and Road Initiative is, essentially back about a decade ago, the Chinese began a massive foreign infrastructure investment program. Now, most of the work that they're doing is in the Eastern Hemisphere, you know, in Asia, all the way through Europe. They've invested heavily into African nations as well, but the Chinese cozying up with Panama, it symbolized them expanding this more into the Western Hemisphere, obviously, which is the US's sphere of influence. We are in the Western Hemisphere. This is basically them working with a country right in our back door with a very important critical shipping route, the Panama Canal, which the US created, being right in the middle of the whole thing, right? So a massive part of Trump's foreign strategy when he got into office was to try and basically shut this down, get the U.S. reprioritized in the Panama Canal, And as of right now, this appears to be at least a minor stepping stone victory for the Trump administration and the United States at large in basically getting what they want when it comes to this. So Panama also, like I said, they announced that they would be more willing to receive U.S. investment in the country in the future, and they're even more interested in seeing if they can get this initiative done and quit basically before it even expires. So a pretty massive shift from Panama in terms of basically who they're prioritizing as their major foreign ally or whatever, right? Now, not to say that China probably doesn't care about this at all, but China still does have growing influence in many other countries around the world. So it's not like this is going to cripple their Belt and Road Initiative by any stretch of the imagination. They still have made some honestly pretty genius deals with a lot of these other countries. I mean, some of these deals are so advantageous for the Chinese that if the countries that host the infrastructure upgrades paid by the Chinese, China can basically claim ownership over the infrastructure built in these countries as a way of repaying the debt. I mean, it really is a very brilliant move by the Chinese government, and it's been basically in many ways uncontested by the U.S. government and by U.S. foreign strategy over the last decade as it's expanded. But for the U.S., this signals, at least from the Trump administration, that the country is going to be a lot more tough on this kind of stuff. You know, we've seen in the last few years, the Chinese have tried to emerge as a real true rival to U.S. global power. I mean, we've seen the establishment of BRICS, which is like a nation grouping that is not necessarily the opposition to NATO, but it's almost like a NATO-esque, EU-esque kind of alliance between countries that are trying to shift their focus away from U.S. foreign involvement, right? So on top of this, as the article stated, Trump also has gotten word from Mexico that basically they will be capitulating a little bit on the tariff threats. Now, this has been making some pretty major headlines the last couple of days. The United States imposed 25% tariffs on both our southern neighbors to the south. You know, Mexico, we put these 25% tariffs in place to try and force their hand on stopping cartel movement of fentanyl and other drugs and illegal immigration into the southern border of the United States. Also placing a 25% tariff on the neighbors to the north, Canada, for largely the same reasons of border security, trying to, you know, get that trade deficit down, things like that. Now, so far, Canada seems much more reliant, I guess, to the tariff threats, as the article suggests. Mexico agreed that there will be a 1-month pause, basically on the tariffs from both sides. Mexico will be sending 10,000 of their soldiers to the U.S.-Mexico border to try and basically tone up the security there, stop more of the illegal immigration, stop more of the flow of drugs from from Mexico into the United States. Now, keep in mind, these tariffs are not completely ended. There is a 1-month pause. Mexico concedes that they will send troops to the border to try and protect against these things, and basically now there will be larger negotiations started between the U.S. and Mexican governments to try and more, I think, effectively solve this issue long term, right? Where maybe the Mexicans, once again, will make more concessions to the United States when it comes to the issues that we've proposed, and as a result, hopefully the U.S. will remove any of these tariffs that they've placed on the Mexican economy. Now, like I said, though, even though this is also a nice victory to see for the U.S. here and all of this, you know, hoopla we've seen in the news, it doesn't mean that we're out of the, I guess, woods in this entire thing, right? Like I said, Canada, they have been a lot more tough on the tariff talk, right? They have reimposed their own 25% retaliatory tariffs on, I believe it is $150 billion worth of U.S. goods. It is apparently kind of slanted to target the Republican-leaning states a lot more than the Democrat-leaning states. There's been videos circulating online showing the inside of Canadian shops where they've removed U.S. products off the shelf. They've put up signs that say things like, buy Canadian goods, things like that. The people of Canada seem to be somewhat split on the subject. Obviously, there's a lot of people who they think it's going to be pretty bad and disastrous for the Canadian economy, which it definitely has the potential to be, since so much of their trade goes to the United States. But there are also a lot of Canadians who their idea is, fuck it, let's stand up for ourselves. Fuck the U.S. We'll, you know, handle these tariffs how we may. And they're ready for a trade war. So I guess when it comes to the whole Canadian situation, we're going to have to wait and see if it escalates to a full-blown trade war, or if one of the governments, either the U.S. or the Canadian government, will be willing to kind of make some concessions to get this whole thing solved and cleared up. But obviously, it seems at least right now kind of hard for a lot of people, I think, to really kind of keep up with everything that's going on in our foreign policy and whatnot, because Trump being reelected has shifted so massively the foreign plans, I guess, of the United States. I mean, I just saw a headline today that said the U.S. is effectively attempting to shut down our U.S. aid agency that distributes a bunch of our foreign aid to a bunch of different global countries. So it seems like the U.S. is trying to really kind of hone in on its foreign strategy. The Trump administration seems to be more or less trying to benefit the American economy by getting these countries to force concessions at the negotiating table. Now, whether that will work long term or not, we'll have to wait and see. But at least in a couple of these initiatives that he started off with, you know, the Mexico thing, the Panamanian thing, it appears that there's already some U.S. victories kind of lining up there when it comes to that, which in my opinion is good news. I mean, I always want to see what's best for the United States. I always want to see what's best for our country regardless. Now, obviously, there's positives and negatives to everything here, but at least as of right now, this is pretty good news for the country. There is still a lot of basically the jury out on a lot of other things. I guess once again, we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully, the U.S. and Mexico can continue to work out a deal that benefits everybody to stop all the shit that's going on between the two countries. Obviously, also, in his first few days in office, Trump actually designated the Mexican cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, which, according to some reports, have been responded to by the Mexican cartels by authorizing weaponized drone strikes and attacks on U.S. law enforcement at the border along with Border Patrol agents. Now, I think there's only been so far one firefight between U.S. officials and the Mexican cartels. That was a couple of days ago. I saw some news about that. As far as I know, nobody was hurt or killed in that, but if that's true, that could probably be a pretty massive hiccup if the Mexican cartels start killing Americans, you know, at the border. I don't think that will be responded to very positively by the Trump administration, but as of right now, that's the news that we have. I mean, like I said, it's the first few weeks of the administration, so at this point, still trying to keep up with everything that's going on. It seems like everything's kind of happening in a flurry. There's been a lot of executive orders. There's been a lot of like massive shakeups in the federal government, but as of right now, these two news stories seem to be pretty positive for the outcome of America. So with that being said, thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're brand new around here on the channel, follow me over on Twitter and Twitch at @SubToOptimus. Make sure to check out Shoptimus down below. Thank you to my Watch Optimus subscribers. Your support helps the channel tremendously. And until the next video, guys, this is Optimus talking about the news between Mexico, Panama, and the United States, and signing out.